we'll get started. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, mate. Welcome. I did actually want to start with something quick. So I saw on your YouTube channel you've hit like 22 or 23 episodes now, which apparently puts you in the top 1% of podcasters worldwide. 99% only get to 21. So I thought that was awesome. So congrats.
Oh,
man.
wow. Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh. Thank you. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. The power of consistency, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful observation. Thank you
go.
so much.
Yeah, so proud.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. And yeah, I believe consistency is a big part of your story. I've heard a little bit about your background already, but yeah, I think there's so much to cover. I guess a good place to start would be, what's been your journey so far? What's brought you up to this point in life today?
So where I'm at now, I'm a DJ in Bali, and that's what I've been like working on and building here. And how I've got here, everyone's story is interesting, right? And there's lots of layers, but I'm going to try and sum it up succinctly. Around about a year ago, for a period of a year and a half, 2 years, I essentially had a bit of a quarterly, thirdly life crisis, right? I was feeling very depressed and anxious. I was feeling really, really trapped in the work I was doing, but I didn't really recognize that at that time. And because of these feelings, I was in a relationship with a fantastic woman, but I ended up sabotaging that and pulling out of it because that was moving to a place of more commitment. And I think I was harboring all these feelings of, God, I'm not doing what I want to be doing in life. And when I was 17 and 18, I had these exciting ideas of like where I would be at, and I was 9 to 5ing remote on my computer on the top floor of my mum's house, right? Then I got fired by a job as well, and unfortunately then my dad unexpectedly passed away as well. So there's a lot of things in 1 year. I had issues with depression and anxiety for many years before that, but everything all of a sudden came to a head and really hit down on me. And even though I'd had instances of therapy in the past, I really struggled with just coping and dealing with everything. And it led me to think that eventually I was relying too much on my friends for help, and I started feeling guilty and ashamed that I wasn't sort of going out there and doing something and being like the man and the person that I wanted to be, really. So I decided to quit my job and decided, hey, I like DJing. I'm going to get some DJ decks and go to India and see if I can DJ there, and then try Vietnam and Thailand and Bali afterwards. And it actually worked really, really well. So now I'm playing like regularly in Bali here, and I played gigs in those other countries, and it's crazy what a leap of faith can do.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, goodness me. I mean, it sounds like, your whole world, it just almost crumbles, right, in that space of a year. And that's really interesting because you could call that like, usually it's like a wake-up call or an ego death, and all these things are happening. It kind of forces you to rebuild yourself back up, right? And it knocks you down, and you're really in those dark moments. I think a lot of the time people stay there and they focus on the past. And as wonderful as all those things were, or so you thought they were, right? So there was the job, and obviously there's the relationship, and obviously your father passing away. So so sorry to hear about that, by the way.
It's life. It happens, unfortunately, but it's just it's difficult when it all happens at once, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of the time in those moments, of course, it's super important to really feel those emotions and get it all out of us. But at the same time, I think we spend a lot of time ruminating on the past and what we used to have.
Yeah.
And in the long term, that doesn't serve us.
No.
And I love how in your story you thought, okay, obviously it must have taken a while to get there, but eventually you were like, okay, right, I want to do something. I want to do something else. Who is my new identity? Who is the new Mike, right? what was your mentality then? Was it right, fuck it, I just want to do the thing that I like, I'm sort of done with all this old shit? How was that process? Because I feel like that, I presume, didn't happen overnight.
No, it didn't. I would say there was two parts to this. So before this sort of happened, the relationship and the job, and then my dad, which was a few months after those two instances, right? I was hiding from this feeling where in every job I got, I was working good jobs that were a service to other people. So I was working in education tech, then mental health technology, and they were quite like nice companies. And I'd start work at a new place, and for the 3 or 4 months, I'd be like, oh yeah, I found it, this is it. And then all of a sudden it'd start creeping up on me, and I'd kind of ignore it, this feeling that like this isn't what you're meant to be doing. This almost isn't exciting enough for you. And then this feeling of being like trapped, and I would try and squash this. And what basically happened was then when those 3 big things happened, that voice quickly became much, much, much louder. And there's like that stereotypical quote, it's like change happens when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change, right? And it was just a case of that. But it wasn't overnight. From losing my job and my relationship ending, it was another year and 6 months. And I really want to emphasize this, of me just feeling completely lost, and kind of having this idea that I wanted to do something crazy. And like when I was a kid, I wanted to adventure the world. So how can I bring that in? And I'd started DJing for a year and I was loving that. And I was like, is it possible to combine the two? Can you just go and be a DJ in another country? That doesn't sound like a realistic idea, right? Without having the big fan base and things, like how do you do that? And it just built up and up and up until I was that unhappy. I was like, oh, fuck me, it's got to be better than what I'm doing now. And then it eventually one day it felt like it wasn't a choice anymore. But that process, that in between was long and painful. But I want to just emphasize that it wasn't a quick, oh, I'm going to go do this and change. It was really difficult.
Yeah, and that's a very important point, like you mentioned, right? That it doesn't come overnight, and that you do go through all these different emotions and steps. And how did that belief system change for you? Because, like you said, I think a lot of people would think, oh, right, DJing internationally, like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, that's maybe that's like, you know, Martin Garrix, or, you know, like, no, that's not. And there's this limiting belief that we can't do that.
Yeah.
So did you have that? Did you have the self-doubts? And what made you sort of overcome these limiting beliefs? What was the sort of step-by-step process, if so?
It's an interesting, because you say that about, you know, Martin Garrix or anyone that's famous, but I set up a YouTube channel about that. Basically, the sort of brand being, is it possible to be an international DJ without being famous yet? And then like documenting some of the steps and the gigs and things. And the limiting beliefs were very much there. I remember being on the plane to India, which was the first country, being like, what on earth am I doing? But I balanced it by not putting too many cards in that deck initially. So I was also going there for a yoga school and things, and I was like, I'm just going to feel that DJ stuff out on the side. I didn't, you know, put my whole life force and being into it at the start. But then I did the yoga, and there was a couple of weekends where I had some free time. I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go out to different bars and just have the conversation. And that's the big thing, is if you have a big goal, for me, I don't focus on the big goal. And I know this is so typical, a lot of people say it, but it really helps. Focus on what I can do today. So even now when I'm in Bali, I don't care. I never have the goal of getting a new DJ gig. I have a goal of, this weekend I'm going to go speak to 5 venues, right? Or 10 venues. And in that way, as long as I go out and do the work, I've succeeded. It's not the outcome, it's just me putting in the time.
this is so important, right?
Yeah.
We put all our worth in external things, right? No matter what area of life it is. And
Yeah.
we base our feeling of success over that, but we can't fucking control that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, right, what can you control? You can control the action.
Yeah.
And you know, deep down, right, if I've gone and made 5 connections today, great. And you told yourself you were going to do that and you did it.
Yeah.
Fucking fantastic.
That's
And
it.
I think that's the mindset. And if you just, in my opinion, if you just continue taking these small steps every day, doing the stuff that you say you're going to do, without obviously pushing too far past your limits, so you get demotivated as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's managing that, and I think just on what you said there is focus on the process, and then focus on doing the process a little bit better. It's not, do you know what I mean? It's not rocket scientist stuff. If you've read 2 self-help books or like any business growth things, they all say the similar stuff, right? But it is fundamental.
It's an important point, and I truly believe that when we think about an outcome, right? So for you, it was like, right, DJing internationally.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the reason why we want to do that is because it would bring us a feeling. And that's what we're all doing. We're chasing a feeling or we're avoiding a feeling. And I truly believe the feeling that this external stuff gives us, I think we can create that now without those things through the power of our mind. I truly believe that. And if you can do that, then you're going to enjoy the process way more because you've already experienced the feeling that you think those things are going to give you. So when you do achieve them, your mental state hasn't changed. And so even if someone takes that away from you, which probably will at some point in some form, because it's not permanent, it's a temporary thing, then you're in control. And I think this is the big mindset shift. I think it's really important we're honest with ourselves and think, okay, right, why am I doing this? Okay, is it because I genuinely love this? Or is it because of the feeling that I think it will give me? And that's a key word, is think, right?
Yeah. Because, I mean, I love the process because I feel like I'm doing something difficult and challenging, right? And that's one of the main reasons why I felt trapped in these jobs before. It's not even about the actual almost DJing itself, although I do love that. But for me, it's the feeling that I set myself like a creative goal in a space and it just felt so difficult and so silly, right? And then in my safe jobs at home, I never had that feeling. It was just another day of the grind. And now today, I feel like it's very much on my shoulders, and it's more pressure. But the satisfaction I get out of that is a lot more. With limiting beliefs as well, stuff that really helped me was, there's a list of things. I did a lot of therapy. I also explored into coaching with that as well. And that helped get rid of like a lot of negative beliefs. And I'm a massive sort of proponent, supporter of that, of things like that to support people. I just devour books, YouTube podcasts and things on self-help. And I've got a theory about this, right? It's very rare you read one self-help book and discover something that changes your life. It does happen, but it's rare. But what I think happens is if you digest this stuff every day and every week, I think it's more of a case of your subconscious absorbing the general themes across all the books. So I've just spent 2 years now just reading nothing but that. And I think my mindset is completely different to how it was before. Because now I'm just like, you can do anything you want. You just have to like try hard enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like it becomes so obvious to you because you read all of this stuff. But it's
your environment. Yeah.
It's your environment. It's the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
I was saying this to my mate the other day. I said, you're starting to hang around people who are sort of growth-minded, right? And they start pushing you to do better. It's like, oh, hang on, you're charging this for your services. Yeah. Hang on, why aren't you charging 3x that?
Yeah.
And you start and this is the effect that it has on you. And I think self-help books as well, even just these small nuggets, right? It might not hit straight away. Yeah. That's a good point. I feel like a lot of messages, they don't hit, right? If you take someone who's depressed and you tell them all of life's answers, and you tell them maybe 100 different things. And I say life's answers, I don't think any of us truly have all the answers, but you know what I mean,
sure.
right? And I think if you told them all of that, you might tell them 100 different things, and how many of them are really going to stick? You know?
Yeah. The difficult thing for me is that as a person that struggled with depression there, like that in itself, what I've just said is you've got to have long-term exposure to the different mindset and the different environment. And that's the biggest thing which has helped me get out of it. But that also makes like just helping someone out immediately so difficult, because it's saying you can't actually fix it right now. You've got to do these X 10 or 20 things, right? And you actually don't have the motivation to do any single one of them right now. So I don't know, someone smarter than me is probably thinking of a way to develop that. But you also mentioned about surrounding yourself with like the correct people. And this always makes me laugh because there's a lot of things on social media about Bali which laugh at the kind of like coaching business and aspects and stuff. However, the reality is I've met so many people from Bali who've all taken the leap to actually step out of their own country. So many people who've started their own business. And even if you've not got any ideas about that stuff, when you're just sat in a cafe and every single day there's like 5-10 people around you on their laptops having conversations about their businesses and things, it very quickly starts imprinting on your brain that this is completely possible. Whereas 2 years ago, I had the mindset of the most regular, normal thing is you have to be in this 9-to-5 job. That's the only real. I genuinely thought that was the only realistic thing. Whereas now I'm like, God, everyone around me is like doing their own thing, and that is so possible. Why aren't you? So I've started doing that now as well.
Yeah, 100%. And it always comes down to environment. And I wonder back home, especially in your journey, right?
Yeah.
Because you were down in the trenches for a while. How was your environment? Was it optimal? Did you have people who inspired you? And if not, how did you, was it the self-help books that helped you change your environment? Was there anything else? And I also wonder what advice you'd give to people who just feel stuck, like their friends are okay, but they don't really motivate them. They try and change, but they can't really relate to anyone. Perhaps their parents aren't supportive of their goals.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of my environment, there's definitely, I mean, I've got some of the most amazing friends ever. And actually, when I've been in my lowest periods over the years, some of them have gone above and beyond to help me. So I do have inspiring friends. The caveat with this is that the majority of my friends are within that kind of like regular 9-to-5 job, okay? And some of them are really, really happy with that, and some of them don't seem as happy with that. And for me, I think my core problem was I felt that I always wanted to be my own boss and I wanted to do something creative and something different. And although I had amazingly inspiring people around me, it was in a completely different direction to what I wanted to do. So I was having these really successful friends who were doing like these big 9-to-5 corporate companies and things and earning loads of money, and like, well, that is inspiring, but it's also just not what I'm interested in any way. And I think you get a raise and you feel happier for 3 months, and then I'm just like, now I just feel stuck again. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was just going to add to that.
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with a mate,
Yeah.
and he had this big sort of wake up call in a way, because he was struggling to find a job for a long time, and
Right.
his thing was law, right?
Yeah.
And his friends was getting all these training contracts, so he kind of looked up to them. He's like, oh, right, these are the inspirational people in my life. And then he would spend more time with them.
Okay.
And he would actually think, it was kind of like, be like, oh, okay, like, I don't know, these people actually, they haven't really matured in school. And he kind of had this big realization. It's just, and I think that's the illusion sometimes. We look at other people and think, all right, we should be doing what they're doing.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
then,
yeah.
okay, but I get it. Okay, maybe they've had some sort of career success or development.
Yeah.
But how are they doing in the rest of their lives? And I think that's where comparison.
It's the worst thing.
It's the worst thing, right?
It's the worst thing ever.
You have no idea where they're at in all these other areas of their life, right?
Yeah.
And it's like comparing the sun and the moon.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
How do you? There's just two completely different journeys.
Like an infinite amount of like data points that have gone into a human, and you're trying to compare where you're at, just like that one idea of where the career or the job that you're happy in. And they've had years of lifetime experiences to build them into a different person. It's just completely pointless to compare yourself to anyone else.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people do it. I think a lot of people
yeah,
do it, right?
We all do. Yeah,
We do, and I think it's again just important to realise it's not even just social media, mate. I think it's just in person as well. I think a lot of the time, if you haven't got that deep, meaningful connection, I think a lot of the time people aren't going to let you into their deepest, darkest shit, right?
Yeah. You also said about what advice would I give to people that was stuck or felt stuck in the same way that I did. And I think that change of environment is the massive one. So a big thing would be, I think, travel generally. Isolating yourself for a bit can really help. But if you're not ready to make a big leap like that, or you're still very much in a thing of, I've got to have this job, I'm doing this here, I'm locked in this place. Maybe you even have a wife, a girlfriend, or kids. I didn't have that stuff, but that's a whole other ball game, which I can't comment on because that's got its own difficulties if you want to make a big change. But reading as much as you can from positive books about direction and change, not just reading one, committing to that you're going to do it for 6 months, absorbing stuff like that on YouTube and things. And I just think if you digest enough of that material, even if your circle of friends is staying the same for that period, it'll just start triggering off those thoughts of, oh, is this possible? Or, oh, I'd never considered that this might actually be like a realistic thing. And if you just get that ball rolling, it can help. Again, the difficulty is it's not quick. I'm not just saying do this and everything's going to be great. It's like you probably have to commit for like 6 months, a year before you see any tangible changes.
Well, that's it. However, I was just telling my family about this. I think reading should be a mandatory part of our day. And yeah, it's so important. We have books that will change your life. And the majority of people, including myself for a while, would leave it until the end of the day when we're sleepy, and then we'd be like, oh, fuck it, and then just go to sleep. I think it needs to be scheduled in, just like any other work task, just half an hour every day. Even if it's an audiobook, you can put it on 1.5 speed and get half an hour worth of reading in 20 minutes or whatever. I think that's really important. And the fact that, yes, while it might seem that it's a while away, just do these little things every day. It's the slight edge. And you mentioned before about how, one book won't necessarily change your life.
Occasionally it does, but not most. Yeah, most time it's just that. Yeah.
And the slight edge changed my whole outlook on life.
Yeah, for sure.
Massive book. I highly recommend. If you haven't already, it's a very easy read, and it's when you adopt that mindset, all this stuff will seem a hell of a lot easier, I think.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on confidence because you've, in the space of time that we've had so far, in one moment suffering a lot with anxiety, and then you're going out, meeting strangers, asking for gigs or networking.
Yeah.
So how has that transition been, and I was going to ask, have you always been confident, or were you even confident doing these things? Are you confident now? And how's that journey been for you? Because I think a lot of guys do struggle with being confident.
I think I'm still developing my opinions on this one. This is quite a complicated topic for me because in some ways, I've been extremely confident and extroverted, right? And then in other ways, this has been covering up like a lot of social anxiety. Especially when I was younger, I did like 5 years of acting classes. And I think that was foundational for me for developing this external level of confidence, right? And I almost get a kick out of sometimes, especially again when I was a bit younger, being like the sense of attention and things. And I guess that leads to the DJing and the acting and stuff. And I can separate that to what I would call business career confidence. I really don't have much anxiety about going to a place to pitch a gig, right? Again, I detach myself from the outcome. That's the biggest thing. I don't care if they tell me, yes, you can play every day. I don't care if they tell me, yes, you've got 1 gig a month. I don't care if they tell me no, or I don't care if they say this is the worst conversation you've ever had. Couldn't care less. I'm just like, just need to go in and say hello. And then the rest I can take from there. If it's awful, I just go, okay, what was good, what was bad, the next one. So I detach myself from the outcome. But then, yeah, the confidence in the work and the career comes naturally. Where I get anxious is in my more personal social interactions. So when I'm actually trying to build and maintain friendships, my brain always is very... I got an ADHD diagnosis, but I don't know, or ADD, sorry, but I don't know what that means anymore because everyone has it. So, I mean,
crazy, right?
Yeah, crazy, right? But with that, the thoughts get really, really bad when I sometimes misread people's social cues and things, and then I start thinking, oh, maybe they don't like me and stuff, and I can sometimes try to overcompensate by being over talkative and hyper, and that's interesting. I get that anxiety in that specific context, but I can really separate myself like really cleanly when it's just for work purposes or something, which I'm still trying to fully understand and comprehend. That's actually one area that I've not got complete clarity on yet.
That's really interesting. Really, really interesting.
Yeah,
and
it's quite weird, I think.
especially because when I first met you properly, I think you were DJing, and yeah, from my mind, I just saw you as a very like bubbly, confident chap. So that's really interesting. And yeah, it just goes to show as well how many times do we, again, coming in with the comparison aspect, right? How many times do we look at someone and think, oh, like I wish I had their confidence, but then inside, what's actually going on there, right?
Well, yeah, there's no. I always remember when I was doing my acting classes and things. I always remember a teacher saying that there's no difference between confidence and pretending to be confident. And I've kept that with me all the time. It's like, I don't have to be confident. I just have to act and pretend to the person that I'm pitching to that I'm confident. And it's the difference. It's the recognizing that your internal worry doesn't necessarily have to reflect your external.
Yeah, that's an important point. And I do think because in some areas you're going to be more confident than others, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I think some people can hopefully relate to a confidence in a certain type of area. So whether it's whether it's DJing, playing football, but you feel that confidence, and it's like an inner, you just feel it. It's like inner, right? And it's the same with everything. I remember my first pro wrestling class. Super nervous, and okay, what if I make a fool out of myself? And then you keep going, and then you build up the confidence. And then I remember I'd walk into my first classes of jiu-jitsu.
Right. Yeah.
And when I would walk in, you walk in and you're very shy, just like, you don't know, should I say hi? Or, and I see this actually a lot in like new jiu-jitsu gyms. I think people guys are very shy, like, oh, should I say hi? Now obviously it's a lot different, but when I first went in, I was just very shy. I was like, okay, if someone says hi to me, I'll say hi back. And, it's like so silly, right? But, and then, I'd be doing jiu-jitsu, and then, my first session, we're sparring, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And then they're just like, oh, just try and survive. Okay. I was just stuck in there, right?
Try and survive. That's the order of the day for the fit. I've done a little bit of jiu-jitsu before. I know that's what it's like when you first go in.
Yeah, well, that's literally it. But over time, it was crazy. The guys there were so supportive. They kept on showing me techniques. And then I'd go 3 times a week, keep on getting better. I was so hungry to get better.
Yeah.
And in quite a few conversations now, people have said how martial arts has saved their life almost. It's given them so much confidence. I can totally relate. I'm sure you can as well. And after even just a month or two, the way I would walk in there, I'd walk in with so much confidence because I know people. I'm like, hello. Good evening. How's it going, brother? You okay? And then I'd be the one showing, it's like a beautiful cycle, and then I'd be showing the new guys, and then I'm like, hang on, I've only been doing this for 2 months, but the confidence comes, and I think if you can go into that first setting where you don't know anyone and you just think, yeah, fuck it, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to shake everyone on the hand, really think, hello mate, hello, be the guy. This is what I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
In any social situation, because everyone's just, you notice this, everyone's like kind of timid and everyone's like feeding into this atmosphere, and I'm like, no, be the one who's like, hello mate, how's it going, lovely to meet you, and be the guy who's, and you notice this,
just look him in the eyes and also just say, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm going to love it and I'm going to try hard. And it's just like, yes, go for it, man.
Absolutely. And and what you'll notice is, I think a lot of the time the reason why we don't do that is because it's fear of judgment. But when was the last time you walked in a room? I reckon if you went in with someone, you were really enthusiastic, right? The chances are people are going to match your energy.
Yeah.
And you can have such a big effect on people if you just go up to them and be like, hey, mate, how you doing? Wow, like you look unbelievable today.
It's huge. It's huge. Yeah, and I love it. I think you need to, I think as an adult, you need to pick one thing that scares you, that you're passionate about, and go, right, because we spend so much time as a child learning different skills. You need to do it as an adult when you're after the age of 25 and dive in and prove to yourself that you can still do something uncomfortable and then thrive from it. And what I found was, I guess this DJing and music in general, actually, learning piano and guitar, because after I was like 26, because I never thought I was a creative person. But this proved to me that I can do something that I was completely convinced before was impossible. And so now that knock-on effect has had that, my mindset has shifted on everything. So I will now walk into a new situation, like you just described, the BJJ gym, right? And go, all right, okay, let's be realistic. I actually don't know what I'm doing here, but I deserve to be here. And there's no reason why I can't be as good as that guy if I just showed up every day. Right? And I have complete confidence in that process. And then you spoke about going in with that energy and that optimism. That's one of the biggest things which I actually attribute to my success in getting gigs in all these countries in a really short time. It's been 2.5 years, and I only first touched DJ decks 2.5 years ago. And so that's now what I'm trying to support other people with, is because there are so many incredible DJs and musicians and creatives in any field, whether you're a florist or photographer, the most amazingly talented people in their bedroom, but they don't know how to go out and sell themselves, right? And you don't need to become a business expert. You just need to learn the most beginner business skills if you are an expert in a creative field, and it will literally 10x your business in a short amount of time. Just the fundamentals of marketing, how to actually look someone in the eyes and tell them what you do in a short paragraph, right? How to add value to someone else instead of saying, I'm the best artist because of this, I'm the best DJ because of this, and I did this and I did this. It's not about, well, this is what you're going to get if I DJ at your place. This is what you're going to get if I come be the photographer at your wedding. Flipping that conversation, all of this stuff. And creatives are missing out because they're so passionate about their skill and they just don't want to do like the 10% of effort just to get that basic business acumen.
I love that. I love that you're sort of helping fill that gap.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, yeah, they are so talented, but they just need...
It's just that little...
just a little bit of refinement. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a huge jump, but it's just these small things. That's why one of the recommendations from a previous guest was how to win friends and influence people, right?
So I've read all books like this. I've only read like 2 chapters of that book, and I didn't get through it. It's on my list still, but yeah. Yeah,
and it's one of those that again,
I've got
it's
an
a
idea,
reminder. Yeah, there's just small things like that which you know I think it just helps. If just at least just give you like a basic understanding of what's going on around you and psychology, right? And yeah, I love that you're doing that, and I also caught wind of that. So 2.5 years on the decks.
Yeah, since I first bought a pair and touched it, 2.5 years.
Okay, this is a really important point because 2.5 years ago, first touched a pair of decks.
Yeah.
And then now you're DJing internationally.
Yeah.
Like, if that's not proof that anyone can... And
this is really can.
This is with all due respect, an ordinary man who's done an extraordinary thing. right? A lot of people look at that and think that's so out of yeah, they can't even dream of something like that.
For sure.
And you've done that.
Yeah.
Not even to mention, the mental state and all this shit happening to you before. So I think that's so
Thank you, man. That means a lot.
that's so inspirational, and
Yeah.
I think people really need to hear that.
Yeah.
Because that's awesome, and because even myself for a while, like I DJ like house parties and stuff, and it was really good fun.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, right, this is really cool, and I think I've noticed this a lot. I think there's a lot of, I think with any community, there's like good and bad vibes, right? And I think a lot
That's
of
definitely the case in DJing.
yeah, and they're like, oh, why did you mix that? And so, who uses a beat match? Like all this stuff and all that noise.
Yeah.
I wonder if you had any advice for people who, again, we can apply it to DJing, but I think any walk of life, they're going to have this imposter syndrome when they start.
Yeah.
I think it's, obviously from my side, it's like, there is really no pressure. I think you do you and see where it takes you, but how did you apply that thinking to yourself at the time when you were doing that?
God, imposter syndrome's a big one, because I threw myself out so much so early. I started getting opportunities really, really quickly. And I was playing at gigs, and oftentimes before I felt like I was ready. And I guess what I did was just invested into my own development. I really, really thrived off the pressure of being like, oh my God, I've got a really big gig and I've not played this genre of music before, because I've not been DJing in my bedroom for 5 years and sort of building up, like this back catalogue and things. So I would go, and then it would force me to spend every day that week researching the venue that they needed, the music, and applying that into it. Imposter syndrome, everyone feels it. I think you need to have the awareness of everyone feels it, right? So if you really understand that, and you can actually, you're self-aware enough, meditation really, really helps with this. You're self-aware enough to go, I'm feeling like an imposter, but I recognize that this is the human condition, right? This is completely normal. I'm always going to feel like an imposter. I did a gig at Red Ruby in Bali, which is a big nightclub with a big sound system, and I was on at 2 till 3:30, which is like their main slot at night. Massive imposter syndrome. But at this point, I get imposter syndrome every time. And I now just go, I just kind of laugh at it, and I'm nervous, and I've got it, but I'm just like, I don't think it's ever going to go, but I don't care anymore.
I like to see imposter syndrome as a confirmation that you're in the right place. Because if you're not uncomfortable, then what are you doing?
You're not pushing yourself to the next level.
You're not. And if you haven't got imposter syndrome, and you're kind of in a job you don't like, and I think that's a sign that you kind of need to do something that scares you a bit.
Right. So you've hit something which is really important to me. It's that if it's the big thing that's scaring you, right, that is the direction that you need to go. And it sounds so obvious, but it's this goes back to me being trapped in those jobs. Like, doing such a big shift feels like the most impossible thing, but it's miles better than the 8 years I spent flip-flopping around and feeling a little bit better and then feeling trapped. And like, if I could go back and shake myself and just go, rip up the rule book that you've been given, that you need to be in this safe sort of career. You don't need to do that. You need to go lean into what scares you. Even if you've got that imposter syndrome, it doesn't matter. That's the sign. The imposter syndrome is the sign that you're in the right place. You move towards that. And I gained a lot of skills in my 20s and 30s, but there is a part of me which is a bit toxic, and I need to remove it. But it's also got some elements of truth, which believes that my 20s to 30s, I wasted a lot of my time on working these things, and I was going out so heavily every weekend. The positive flip side is that I feel like as I've hit 30, I'm now so excited about this next decade, because I feel like it's taken me 10 years to kind of work that out, work out what didn't work, right? Work out what doesn't work for me. And now I've got the idea of I just need to keep leaning into the most scary, most challenging thing, and it's always going to lead to a good place.
Yeah, this is a really important point because I know a lot of people who feel like they've wasted years of their life, whether it's been they've been depressed or they've been
Yeah,
partying
yeah.
too much,
Yeah.
and most people just went straight out of school, went to uni, and then they got a job straight away.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's all this fucking shitty comparison, and that's a good point because all those experiences before have made you into the person that they are today, right? And they've all
Yeah,
led
yeah,
you.
yeah.
You doing all this stuff that wasn't aligned, it's put you on the path that you are now.
Yeah.
And now you're doing what you love. And it is, we learn, I truly believe we learn something from everything, our interactions
Massively.
with people. And
Yeah, massively. I mean, it's none of it. Every job I had, I learned different skills of and things, and I've all applied that to like the business side of DJing and stuff. And I couldn't have avoided that time. I don't think I could have shortcutted it. I needed all of those experiences to realize what I really, really needed to do. And also, that sounds like it's painting a very negative picture, but you're right. Like a lot of those work things, it all cultivated to my different abilities and stuff, and now I use all that in the context that I actually want to be using, right? So it's kind of, I feel like I did my time, and now I can invest it into what really, really excites me.
yeah, I love that. And you mentioned before that you were kind of ignoring the signs that your life wasn't for you. And I wonder how people can wake up to the signs without having to have a parent die or a relationship end or this big wake up call, right? How can people start being more sensitive to the signs? Because the signs are there, but I think our ego blocks them out.
I think it's really difficult, and I'm gonna step back on this and say that I don't think I'm the best person to explain this yet, because for me, it was honestly like 8 or 9 years of like burying this and ignoring it, and like 8 or 9 years, like, and I can't emphasize how much difficulty and angst I felt from doing it. And then it was only when the 3 worst things happened that then it gave me enough motivation to actually, it became almost like a non-option to me. So the real useful question there would be, how do you do that before it gets to be the most terrible thing, right? How do you recognize that you're just sort of unhappy? And I don't know, because I didn't have that. I just got beaten down so badly that I was just like, fuck this. And actually, I wish I could have done it 4 years earlier, but the pain for me wasn't enough to motivate me to overcome all the fears. So, God, I don't know. But if you find the answer, get in a time machine and tell like 22-year-old me, because I'd love to know.
Get back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is tricky, mate, because I think people are, comfortable, and I think
I've got some friends like it, and some of them are really happy about it. There's a couple which are just comfortable, and it makes me so sad, because I see just a couple of them where it seems like they're in a very similar space to me, and at times I think it's the most hard and scary thing to admit to yourself, and it pains me like seeing other people in that situation, because you can't really help. You can only help yourself, I think.
Yes, 100%. And I think I've been thinking about something recently, which is we're always trying to seek pleasure in everything that we do, and we're trying to numb ourselves a lot. And I really believe that instead of seeking pleasure and seeking these emotions, we should really be sinking into them and really feeling what's going on.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's so easy to just like pick up your phone and just get that dopamine hit from fucking scrolling, right?
It's the worst.
And we're depleting our dopamine stores. And I really think, just really pay attention. Really pay attention. What's your body trying to tell you?
Yeah, for
What's
sure.
going on? Like this angst, and are you uncomfortable? Are you easily triggered? And what is it because I do think we can become more sensitive to those signs just by not chasing that dopamine hits.
Yeah.
And because these dopamine hits, I think they are a distraction. This is why, again, I think alcohol is a distraction for a lot of people. They might not admit to it, or they might not realize it, but I think a lot of the time, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's some people who have it because they want to enhance their life experience, right?
Yeah.
But I do think a lot of the time it's kind of an autopilot, and okay, why am I actually drinking? Is it to feel better?
Yeah. So you've this is fascinating for me because you've described essentially the fundamental cause of Buddhism, right? And especially what you said about the craving and seeking pleasure. So the first truth of Buddhism is that suffering is in life, right? And then the second truth is that it's caused by craving or desire. And also on the flip side of that, aversion, so not wanting something to happen. But mostly we go through seeking this sort of happiness. And this is something which has really, really helped me because I've got interested in Buddhism through meditating on Headspace like 5 years ago. And that was just mindfulness, but then that led me down the path of like reading. I read like over 20 books on it, and it's fascinating stuff. I went and did a silent meditation retreat in Thailand, and then was at a yoga school in India, which had very similar themes for a month. And the more you meditate, the more you become self-aware, the more you begin to spot and it really does happen. You can't just meditate once. If you do it for a month, you'll notice this happening. Just 10 minutes a day. That's all you need to do, but you need to do it consistently for a month. And you'll start spotting the automatic reactions that you have. So like, someone in the cafe didn't say please or thank you to me, and now I feel angry. But in the past, I would just react and just feel angry. Whereas now, that feeling still comes, but there's also a second voice which says like, oh, you're feeling angry. Why? And that's interesting because now you start going, oh, I want to go out and drink. And that same voice happens and goes, oh, why? And it's interesting how like meditation and things can be a vehicle for that. And then just also the general understanding from that perspective that the biggest source of unhappiness in life is that craving. And that's just one sort of toolkit for explaining that. But actually, that's echoed in lots of other different types of spirituality. And I think lots of other religions touch on it in different sort of format of words and things. But yeah, I think that's fascinating. Getting over that craving and that desire is one of the biggest things that we can do to start being more satisfied right now.
100%. And again, it's that seeking of pleasure, it's that seeking of desire, right? And again, I think we can learn so much from not only the Buddhist practices, but also I think all types of religion, because I think religion itself has a lot of negative connotations, right? Because it's been misused in the past to justify wars and shit. But I think we can learn a little bit from each of them. I know in sort of Judaism, having sort of a rest day on Sunday, I think that's a pretty awesome practice.
It's a good practice.
Well, it's good, right? Because if we're working the whole time, then we're gonna burn out, and we'll take it out on everyone. And
it's the rest day to be in touch with your spirituality, though. It's not I think that's the important bit. Not that it's just a rest day for the sake of being lazy, which is what our English culture brings in. But it's the sense of to forget everything else, like have some time to be with yourself, focus on like what's important. That word God, which I used to hate that word because I always used to think of just the guy with the beard in the sky, right? And then as I read a lot more, I was like, actually, God can be so many different things and sort of like universal energy and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I'd really love to touch on this because I feel like a lot of the time when I speak to guys about spirituality, there's a big disconnect. I think there's this, right, okay, you're either like atheist or you're woo-woo and you believe in all this mystical weird shit, right? And I really want to expand on this because there's a big misconception here, and a lot of people view spirituality as something that happens. Okay, maybe that's something people believe happens after life.
Sure.
But this is the important thing. Spirituality is happening right now, and
Yeah.
it's so real. And this is why I want it to be a bit of an area of focus, right? And I think when people are in touch with that spiritual side, they can get so much out of life. And
Sure.
from my experience, I felt the profound impact it's had on me. It's really changed my perspective and given me this inner sense of joy and connectedness to everything around me. So I'd love to hear about sort of your experiences there, and again touching upon this sort of energy
Yeah.
exchange as well, right?
Yeah, and the energy exchange as well. It's interesting. So I'm not an expert in this. I'm a DJ in Bali. Do you know what I mean? But I'm still learning a lot. But I've had a lot of valuable experiences. Sorry, about the difficulties of men accepting or even understanding spirituality to a basic level. I think one of the keys of this is that, as you said, it can have such a negative stereotype. Just even things like tarot cards and horoscopes, which, regardless of whether you believe in them or not, I'm not judging that. It's getting away from the most important parts of spirituality, which is about, how you connect with other people, like how you fulfill your own mission, find your own joy and happiness. But also a big one for me is understanding that it's not all about that I. So for example, in the meditation retreat I did, I had on about day 6 of doing like 8 hours meditation in silence, I had like a full ego death like experience, and it was crazy. So I saw, basically my mind became still, as it always does in meditation when you do it for long enough, but then something was different that became a bit of a visual hallucination, and it was like a black lake, right? And there was like drops in the black lake, and they were getting slower and slower and slower until it just ended. And what sort of happening was like reflected in the lake with the thoughts that there is no individual self. And what I mean by this is, when you're feeling happy, right, you think, oh, I'm a happy person. But then that changes, right? So you're not your emotions, because they change all the time. There's no fixed emotional base. You go, right, okay, am I my thoughts? Your thoughts change all the time. So you're not your thoughts, right? We go, oh, well, am I my body? Well, your body decays and dies. It's not that. And you start going, there's no fixed thing, apart from perhaps the only thing you can observe is the idea that there is something observing all of these other stuff, right? But that strips away your whole identity, because your whole identity is based on your emotions and your thoughts. So that's not there. Now, that's not spirituality in a woo-woo sense. That's just common logic for me. And this is the big thing for trying to explain spirituality to men and to get them invested in it, because most men are like, logic and, it's got to make sense. And that's why we don't believe in tarot cards and things, because there's no reasonable explanation for why that is. But that stuff that I observed was just based on observation. And it makes sense. You're not your emotions because they change. You're not your thoughts because they change, right? And Buddhism and yoga and Indian philosophy talks about that a lot about that as well. The other one, which you said, energy exchange. So this is another part of spirituality, which when you say to most men, they go, well, no. It's like, you're just energy, man. And it's like, especially in Bali, like, we're just all energy. However, if you look at it from a physics side, you boil it down, you look at particles, right? Particles are just energy. And that is constantly exchanging with other people. And when you conflate that, spirituality is trying to explain what physics is now showing with science. And those two connect exactly, right? We are just energy. And there are like heightened fields and things, and we can believe that because it's shown and proven in science. So I try to separate personally spirituality from the woo-woo stuff which you hear about to actually, when you really start reading deep into it, what the spiritual practices that people have been talking about for hundreds of thousands of years that are based on logic and reasoning, and then also have now some proof from science. And there's more being unraveled, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I love that. I think you've broken it down so well. I love your analogy there. I think a big step, and you've, again, broken it down, but it's, right, okay, we've got this mind, right? But, okay, we've got an ego.
Yeah.
A lot of people mistake an ego as, he's got a big ego.
But
we've all got an ego.
We all do.
We've all got an identity. And I always use the noisy roommate analogy, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
So when I sit down with my clients, I go, right, okay, so what's been going on in your head recently? Oh, like self-doubt, and like I'm such a failure, and all of these things. I was like, okay, let's take the noisy roommate example. And what I mean by that is, let's imagine that you had a roommate in your room.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's sleeping on the other side of the bed, and you're going to sleep, and he's like, oh, Mike, your DJ set was a bit shit today. You'd be like, sorry?
Yeah.
Excuse me? It's like, oh, no, don't worry. Plus, that woman that you talked about, she thought you were a bit strange.
Yeah.
And they keep on going.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I don't know if you're going to be able to afford rent this month, by the way. You would slowly start to get really annoyed by this guy.
Yeah.
So I'd ask you, right, would you take advice off of this guy?
No,
because he's obviously quite wounded and a bit
negative,
strange, right? And very negative,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't want to identify with him. And I like to think of our mind as a noisy roommate telling you all this nonsense. I'm pretty sure 90% of it is a load of bollocks anyway, right? And I think, right, imagine your mind, when your mind is talking and you're getting all these thoughts, just think, okay, it's a noisy roommate again. And again, you can't, it's not ignoring them, because if you ignore them, then, you're going to sort of make a big deal out of it. You're going to cause a lot of conflict. So it's just like observing it. It's like, okay, well, just you do your thing. And this is what I mean. If we separate our mind from who we are and just see it as the noisy roommate, then I think we can make a hell of a lot more progress.
I want to touch on that, because there'll be, if there's people watching this who haven't explored into that, they'll go, separate myself from my thoughts. What on earth do you mean? And it sounds like it's complete bullshit, right? If you've never explored that before, and so this isn't to underplay the difficulty of it, because it's hard, right? But you can do it. If you don't believe me, go meditate 20 minutes a day for a month. I say this to everyone, and you will have at least a beginning concept of how this actually works in real time. It won't work all the time, but you will start spotting instances where it does. And that's one tool. The other one is actually, just reflection. Journaling is stereotypical, but the more you actually reflect on your thoughts and identify the negative ones which were unhelpful, the positive ones, that helps. Therapy, discussion, again, your environment, when you're surrounded by more people who are aware of this fact that you can separate yourself from your thoughts. They don't go away. They never go, but you can choose to ignore them and not get as emotionally attached to them. That's the case. And then there was, what else did you? I slipped my mind now.
Well, I think just expanding on what you've said there, taking the emotions out of the thought, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the time when we think of things, we attach emotion. This guy said this thing to me, like, how dare you? And, there's all this, and our body makes a reaction, and we're thinking about this thing.
Yeah.
But I think, all right, let's take the emotions out. Let's just observe that thoughts. Okay, this guy said something. Okay, and then even just doing that, it's like, okay, right, that's the thought. And when you look at it objectively without this thing, it's as if someone else has said it. Mm-hmm. And you could, for example, if you've said to me, this guy did this to me, I'm not going to feel the emotions that you've said, right? Unless it was something terrible and I'm being angry.
Of course.
But if it was just a simple thing, mate, someone spilled a coffee on me today and it was just so clumsy, I'm not going to feel that anger.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to feel that anger for you. I'm just
yeah.
observing you. And I think we can do the same with ourselves.
Well, this is interesting. Yeah, this goes back down to that self-identity thing as well. So again, in Buddhism, they say one of the big things is that it's non-self. That's one of the big realities of life that people need to realize. And if someone's rude to you, you're angry because you have such a self-identity that you feel like your self-identity has been offended and you need to defend it, right? But when you start doing more work into investigating and see that self-identity is made up of personality and feelings which change all the time and therefore aren't consistent. So actually, is there a self-identity? And then all of a sudden you reduce the power that those negative comments have on you because you can detach yourself. There's nothing really offending me. What offended me when I was 4 years old was someone saying they wouldn't share their toy. That changed. What offended me when I was 15 was different to now. Like, it's just, you can start distancing yourself from it.
Yeah, and I think also just like, okay, people are they're not attacking you, they're attacking your ego.
Yeah.
Like, that's the ego that you've presented to the world, and people will perceive it differently. And also, if people were to say something bad about me, it would just bounce off me like that. Because, and this is a really crucial point, right? We take things personally a lot of the time. It's our human nature.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just like, if someone says something, you can see where it's coming from. It's their ego, and their ego is trying to protect these inner child wounds, right? So when they were younger, they had a tough experience, and I think that the bigger someone's ego, and the more the louder they are in a sort of negative sense, I just see that as, okay, right, they're obviously protecting something smaller. So it's like, how can I take that personally when he's just obviously just projecting his own shit? And it's just like, you can't take it personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking like I'm someone now that never gets offended by people. Definitely do. But it's an interesting one because I've done enough learning now where I logically know this is the real thing and you can separate yourself and not to. But I still react. Although I will say it's a lot less to random interactions now. But if it's someone personal, then I know that's what you should do. I've still not quite worked out how to do that. That can still trigger me because I'm obviously not some Zen monk somewhere that has completely distanced himself. I still do have that ego. And actually, let's just give me a different thought. It's something that I actually find quite difficult to balance is the discovering more about like that spirituality side, and then doing something as front-facing as DJing, where the nature of it to get gigs is very like social media, this, and this was how great this gig was, and I'm playing at this new cool venue, and like it doesn't combine well, right? And I try my best to navigate it, but there's very much sort of fundamental clashes there that you have to deal with.
That's a really interesting point, yeah, because again,
there's
it's
so
much
ego in that.
Well, there is, but I think also you could kind of see it. I think you mentioned you did acting, right, at some point, and I think just thinking, okay, you know what, this is like this is the DJ character.
Yeah.
And I think maybe even separating yourself from that. And yeah, I've had discussions on this podcast before. It's really fascinating. It's like, okay, but you should just be fully authentic all of the time. And I still think that's the case, right?
Yeah.
Be authentic in everything you do. Show up to the world as your true self. However, I think if you are struggling between that disconnect between, okay, you know what, I need to promote myself and it doesn't come naturally to you, or you're a DJ. I think just, separating the two, it's still you, but okay, this is the DJ character, and okay, if people attack that, then all right, well, okay, cool, but that's not me, that's my character, which is just a representation of you.
Yeah, that's the representation. So, I mean, I've said a couple of times now that I don't believe there's like a fixed self, right? And I suppose an easier level to get to, which is more realistically where I'm at, than being completely detached and not having yourself, is to accept that yourself changes and fluctuates, right? And so that then explains how you can almost have a few different identities while still they are all authentic. Because DJ Mike is very, very like confident, outgoing, loves to party. But then there is also a side to me which is equally authentic that doesn't want to socialize and wants to read and just be chilled and quite zen and go. They're both equally true. And actually having that balance puts me at less risk of being hurt. Because if I'm 100%, the DJ identity, what happens when that goes away at some point? Or I move away, then I have a sudden crisis of, who am I? What am I doing? Whereas being aware of the different things that are important to your ego, if you could go the step and get rid of the ego, it'd be even better, but most of us aren't going to do that. But yeah, so having that, being aware of the fluidness and that you can have multiple different sort of faces in a way, and they're not inauthentic, not necessarily.
Yeah, I think that's super important for a number of reasons. I think, not boxing yourself into an identity.
Yeah.
And I also think not identifying with your profession as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important point, and having multiple facets to you, right? Because again, if you're the DJ, and we've had Aaron Timms on the podcast, and for him, he was a football player and a boyfriend. But he had a car accident, and he no longer had a girlfriend because she unfortunately died in the crash, and he could no longer play football again. So that's what I mean.
That's his two pillars just gone.
That's just identity gone, right?
Yeah.
And with yourself before, what caused the really difficult moment, I believe, was, okay, you had an identity as a boyfriend, and that was taken away from you, and you had this other stuff going on as well with the job, and okay, you had an identity as but whatever the job was, and
I don't think I felt I had an identity.
Well, maybe.
I mean, you're definitely right about that identity as a boyfriend. That's 100%. But I think my bigger thing was I felt that my identity, my identity was inauthentic. That was it in itself.
That
right?
is an identity.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's it. And that's what happened with Aaron. He looked in the mirror and he's like, I don't actually know who I am.
Yeah.
I don't actually know who I am. And I think that's a good point. We become reliant on these things to give us a sense of identity, right? And I guess that's possibly one of the aims of life, is to discover who we truly are to an extent, because our
big question,
societal conditioning, are we who we actually are, or are we the product of societal and parental expectations?
Oh, it's probably all of it, but I do know society winds me up. I just think I had years being sold to me of this 9 to 5 dream, and all this last year has taught me is that was the biggest road to unhappiness in my life. For some people, it's absolutely great and they love it, but I know I'm not the only one who feels like it's really not the way, and it's just so trapping for those people. It really, really is.
But this is why. One of the reasons I started the podcast, just opening people's minds up. And I think if one person can listen to this and take that leap of faith, and no doubt they're going to be fucking inspired by your story, mate. I've loved hearing.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely loved hearing about it. I think that's a great way to sort of wrap things up, just on that note.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got 3 closing traditions on the podcast for season 2.
All right.
The first 2 are the usual questions that we ask, and the third one is asked by a member of our audience.
Okay.
And I ask our Growth Voyage followers for a question.
All right, cool. That's good. That's fun.
Number 1 is going to be probably the most difficult question you've had today.
Really? Oh, no. Okay, go on.
A song recommendation.
A song recommendation? Oh, wow. Wow. A song recommend. Do I go for a class?
Bearing in mind, he's probably got 10,000.
That's what it is ticking right now.
10,000 on his USB, and he has to choose one.
I'm going to go for a classic, right? And I was walking on the beach the other day, and this came on. It's like a chilled house song with jazzy, funky elements, but it's Crazy P is the DJ Heartbreaker, right? And it was sublime. It's the most perfect chilled song for afters or in the morning and things. I was on the beach with the sunset, but yeah, it was beautiful.
I love that. And
Sunrise, sorry.
yeah, unfortunately she passed away, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. She did. It's very sad.
Really sad. And I remember watching her at El Dorado,
Ah.
and that was where I met my girlfriend actually.
Oh really? Oh wow.
On that same stage. So yeah, great memories of her. She was super talented.
Yeah.
Super talented.
Yeah.
Great suggestion. Awesome. Number 2 is a book recommendation.
A book recommendation. Can I give 2?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to give 2. So I've started exploring into building my own business, which is the DJ Business Academy. And there's a couple of books which have really helped me with that. Now, one for more of the mindset towards building a business is Think and Grow Rich. Okay. The updated version, because the old version is very based on like US presidents and things and it swaps it. But the updated version is really good. It helps reframe your brain into a way which thinks that, being able to grow a business is realistic, and you absolutely can do it. You just need a strategy. It tells you how to create a vision board as well. I've got that on my wall and repeat that. But the other one, which is the and actually I think this is a bigger recommendation, which is the nitty gritty stuff of how to really simply scale a business. 100 million offers and 100 million leads by Alex Hormozy is immense. Every chapter, it's super simplified. It takes you step by step. How do you create an offer which people would feel stupid not buying? And then the second book, The Leads, how do you find the people to do it? And it spells it out so simply. If you want to start a new business, take those 2 books and just use it as a guide. You won't go far wrong. Unbelievable.
Yeah, wicked recommendations.
Yeah.
I think Alex Hormozy is such an inspiration in terms of building a business, right?
Crazy, man. Just the way he explains, he's so on it with the business stuff. Some people dislike the hustle culture bit. Regardless of whether you dislike that or not, that's not the point. How he breaks down business concepts for anyone to understand and an action is unparalleled. That is sick.
I love that, and it ties in with our discussion about limiting beliefs as well.
Yeah.
You can't run a business, or I don't have the business skills as well, but you can learn, and
of course you can. Yeah, you can.
Absolutely, you can. The third one is a guest question. So we've asked one of our guests for a question.
Okay.
Let's have a look here. This one comes in from James Worley.
James Worley.
Big
up, James.
Big up, James. He asks, do you have a daily habit or ritual that has had a huge impact on your life?
Yeah, that would be meditation.
Thought you'd say that.
Yeah. I've done lots of others, but I've not kept them up as consistently as meditation. Journaling's great. I've had sporadic things of doing that for 6 months or a year. And not masses, just 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things I'm proud of achieving for the day. I think if you start saying, I wrote a big essay about it's unrealistic for a lot of people. So I would just do like 6 sentences on those things. Journaling was good. Exercise isn't daily for me, but it is about 4 or 5 days a week. That's vital. But meditation is the big one. And again, I think there's a toxic thing with this about people who are like, I meditated for like an hour and like all this, and it's just unrealistic. But you can find 5 or 10 minutes to do it. And if you do 5 or 10 minutes every day, it has a really big impact. And if you can't find 5 or 10 minutes, you just wake up 5 minutes earlier. Everyone has 5 or 10 minutes in the day.
Yeah, and doing it, I think, close to when you wake up and in the evening and before you go to bed, because I think you can access a nicer brain frequency, I think, and access.
If you can do 5 minutes in the morning and at bed, better. If you had to choose, everything I've read says that in the morning is a little bit more effective. At night, it's better for like winding yourself down for sleep, but in the morning after your brain's fully rested, I think it's a bit of a different feeling in a way, I think. Some people disagree. But yeah, my 2 cents.
As with everything, well, mate, I think this whole episode's been a lot more than two cents. To be honest, it's been invaluable.
It's been a good conversation, man. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good.
Been really good fun. Where can people? Well, firstly, I think just on the meditation aspect, I think it'd be helpful because a lot of people think meditation's really fucking difficult.
Yeah.
It's actually very simple.
It's very It's very simple. The difficult part is the consistency of it. But you only need to do 5 or 10 minutes every day for 3 or 4 weeks, and you will see massive benefits, right? That will benefit you. And then after that, motivating yourself becomes a lot easier. The place to do it, if you've never meditated before, is Headspace or Calm, because they break it down into small 5-10 minute sections that are really easy to digest.
Brilliant. Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Such a simple process. Where can people find you if they're interested in your
for sure.
services?
So the main way would be on Instagram at the moment. I've got other profiles, but that's my most active. So that's at bauerhaus.dj. Bauerhaus is the German way of spelling it. So BAUERHAUS.dj. And then the DJ Business Academy is on Instagram as well, and the website will be up and running in the next month, which is www.djbusinessacademy.com. So the majority of what I'm doing is on those areas as well. I also do have a historic YouTube channel called Borderless Beats, which got quite successful actually, and I'm probably going to go back to bringing some videos on that in the future, but not right now.
Okay, wicked. Well, I certainly look forward to looking at your content. And if there are any bookers out there, I've been to one of your bookings and impeccable vibes.
Yeah.
Great. Love the tunes. I think I loved how you sort of mixed it up between feel good stuff and certified bangers, but then also throwing in a couple hidden gems there as well, which is really cool.
I try not to restrict it by genre too much. My thing is anything that's fun, happy, and I just try to have a good time with it, man. I think I'm starting an event soon. I've not told anyone this, by the way. But the event branding is just going to be cheerful DJs only, with like a sub headline of because parties should be fun. Because I can't stand the ego-driven, which is a big thing we've been speaking about, the ego-driven side of the DJ business, where people are like, oh, it's so cool, and I'm like a DJ, and I've got this. It's not about that. It's not about you. It's about other people having fun. So that's a new project I'm working on as well.
I love that. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think I have noticed that in the community.
Definitely in Bali as well.
I can imagine. But mate, thank you so much. It's been such a fucking awesome conversation.
Yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I think what you're doing is amazing, bro. Keep it up. As I said, you've made it past the 21 mark. So you're in the top 1% of podcasts in the world. That is true. Fact check it. It is a real statistic. And I just think keep on, man, because the conversation's been great. And I'm looking forward to seeing all the next episodes.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Cool, man.